Welcome to the Chatting Chakras podcast, where we get our inspiration from chakras, yoga, art, and sacred space of friends. Here's your hosts ready to rock the rainbow with you, Christina Alexa, Lonnie Voivod, and Kate LeMay.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody, to Chakra Chats with Christina Alexa and Lonnie Voivod, the magical, famous humans in my life. What card are we talking about today, my friends?
Oh, just one. So this is, we're heading into green. Spoiler. Working into untangle.
You want me to read, Lon?
Yes, please.
Kate, do you have the card or no?
Yeah, I can hold it up. Let me just find it. Here she is.
I love this one. I just want to take a moment to pause on that visual. It's really stunning. It really is. Untangle. This is the Anahata chakra, the heart chakra, located in the heart center, shoulders, arms, hands. Untangle. When the feeling in your heart is tangled and knotted, it is important to allow yourself a calm knowing in the space of your heart. I just have to repeat that. When the feeling in your heart is tangled and knotted, it is important to allow yourself a calm knowing in the space of your heart. Be in stillness in the heart. Untangle the strings by releasing each one by one. You'll know when it's untangled. Mantra, I forgive. Can I just comment as we start that how amazing that this comes, that knowing comes after honor the process. I honor the process, right? That's phenomenal. Mantra, I forgive. Okay.
I love that untangle is the gate, is the forgiveness art. You know, I love, what a beautiful word to associate with forgiveness, you know, the mantra in the painting. So thank you for that, Kate.
This one's a surpriser, you know, like I think every time I read it, I'm always like, it's about love, obviously, and about that emotion we have when we're in conflict with relationship or love in a way that feels constricted and tied up, and that, you know, it, without saying the word freedom or liberation or that austere purity, I think that we were speaking of around emotion and feeling. This is like saying in the heart, we can kind of often, I think it's like a victimization around, you know, this person is making this happen to me. This thing is causing this in me. And really what I'm not trying to nod at, and again, like I said in our last chat, this stuff came through me. Obviously, I would have never probably married these ideas together like this, but the fact that forgiveness is this key to an untangled heart, which, you know, if you've ever had a tangled heart, and I think this painting was made during a time that I had a tangled heart, I definitely feel like I do not right now, which is such a beautiful evolution to be able to see in my own world, to know that at that time how knotted my heart was and how truly I have one by one released these strings, so that now there is this, it's just a feeling of deep peace and calm around the heart. And this idea of forgiveness, it's probably a nod to ourselves as much as it is to if someone else is connected to that intertangling. So that's, I guess, what I can start us off with.
Kate, could we start this where you actually speak to the painting?
I was just going to do that, Lonnie. I was just going to go, Can we look at these two? Can we look at the tangled and the untangled?
Can you geek out on exactly
Sure.
the design and what you see?
Yeah, so the top is actually every single layer. So I would put a circle down and then I'd do a little layer of a squiggle. Then I'd add another circle on top. So literally it's in the tangles are embedded in layers of paint, so that with each layer, it's like intertangled. And then the very top, of course, is just sort of like icing on the cake with the drizzle. So it's showing this is a tangled heart down to the clean line, which is the single, you don't see it knotted process. So this is really like a process map for untangling the strings of the heart. So the first one is very tangled. The second one is not tangled at all. And anytime that you see a singular line running through my paintings, which a lot of them have it, it's a nod to source. So it's a nod to the divine. Just the line running through is like always the divine. So this is a nod to the divine, and also in sheer way that I made it, it's very knotted up in different layers. So that's this painting. And there's lots of layers.
You know what
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't know if I ever noticed, because you have another painting, which I'm not thinking right now, but it's two I think it might be in green also, no? Or I'm not sure. I hadn't really pieced together the visual as strongly. Oh, we may have lost. Okay, so this comes up, but that's different than tribe. I mean,
yeah,
we have, you know, I didn't realize how obvious like the tangled heart to the untangled is. I didn't realize it. So thank you. Yeah, I know. I'm like, how did I miss this little sucker?
Yeah, so that, and it's actually this particular image, you know, because I've made these now 3 or 4 times, different versions of it, I have gotten more refined in the swirly at the top. So it's really I like it like super hairline thin. And this one you'll see is like a little clumpier because it was my first round with the images. So, you know, the actual process of becoming entangled, I love the spots when it's super thin where the lines cross, because I try to move pretty quickly so that it's wet on wet and it has a place to adhere. You know, the wet line adhering to the other wet line. But
see, I would love to remind ourselves to bring in more about the artist process and some, if not all, of the rest of the work here, because it really cannot overestimate or exaggerate how much time and intuitive guidance you had with each of these pieces. You know, there's the like you spoke to it. There's the meditation process where you start to get like tappity taps inside your mind, and I would say probably inside your heart, about an image starting to form. And then you have to figure out what that means, because the way that you take the giant piece of paper and you tape it into 54 of these suckers, right?
Yeah.
And then each one you spend time, like really the nuancing is I think lends itself, especially in the untangle realm, because when we read this a few minutes ago, there's a gentleness, of course. The heart chakra is feminine based, but there is a gentleness in this untangling. Probably forgiveness, we could say, is maybe one of the most squirrely, uncomfortable things that we may have to deal with ourselves and others in this life. And I feel like infused in this painting, in the meaning, in the intention of this piece of art is an inherent gentleness that it's so green, it's so heart chakra, but it's also how you say, you know, when it's untangled. Like there's that signals an inner wisdom that has so much grace that I'm just sitting here in full gratitude, which again, maybe it's because I'm bringing in all the green. Like there's grace, there's gratitude, there's forgiveness, right? There's discomfort that leads to permission to feel and to love. And like you said, all in the foundation, and you know, the fertilized, what is it, with the fertilized ground of love. Chatty.
What do you have?
Chakra cat.
You know,
Chakra cat.
this is like, we're like I actually, when I read these, sometimes I was telling this to Lonnie, or maybe it was Christy, I can't remember, that sometimes like when I read it to people that I know have never been exposed to any of this stuff before, it can sound like, what in God's name are you saying? Right? Like it's heady, and yet it's pretty simple and clean too at the same time. It has that simplification in it that I do think anyone can get it. It is not rocket science, but the concepts in them are they're dense, they're deep, that you could study your whole life on every single one of these paintings. Like one concept could be your entire life study. So.
Can you two see me and hear me right now?
Yep.
Yes.
My Wi-Fi dropped off for a minute and I missed some of that description. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen. But can I make a comment on this painting before we move on
Yes.
from it? Because my experience and understanding of the heart chakra in its purest form is it's the knowing and tapping into the knowing that we are unconditional love. Not that we have to learn how to be unconditionally loving, not that we have to discover it, but that we already are that, and that we, through this untangling, we re-experience it. It's already there, unconditional loving. And so this painting to me illustrates that perfectly, because the essence of the heart chakra is intact in both of them. And I think some people think that when, we go through, and I have been there, my heart has been shattered in my life, absolutely broken. And I think that sometimes when we go through a real broken heart, we think that the heart is injured and that it will never rebound again, or it will never be whole again. And that's not true. It always is that. It's waiting for us to, and actually it was through that process that I re-experienced unconditional love. And so I love that this particular one, Untangle, and the mantra is I forgive. It's not forgiveness, it's I forgive. My experience, can I talk about that for a minute, Kate? Is that okay to segue here? Because I think forgiveness is a really personal process, and it's an elusive one. Forgiveness was always elusive to me. How do you forgive? You can't just decide to forgive. It doesn't work that way. You can't say, well, I forgive so-and-so and be superficial about it, or I forgive myself for this and be superficial about it. In my experience, it's through the untangling process, it's through that feeling work we're talking about, that we arrive at the end of all of that, or at a point in all of that, at forgiveness. And I think we come, correct me if I'm wrong, or if your experience is different. In my experience through that untangling, we come to a point of acceptance first. And then forgiveness is a final pinpoint moment, decision. To me, forgiveness is a decision after we hit acceptance. And then we can decide, yeah, I'm ready to forgive myself, or I'm ready to forgive another. And we can do that by degrees, right? Every time we revisit that place. So that's where I go with the heart chakra, as being unconditional love, as going through that untangling process. I love that the word stillness is in this description, coming to acceptance somewhere along that way, and then arriving at forgiveness. And it's so liberating. It truly is. And forgiveness is letting ourselves off the hook. I don't care who we're forgiving. For forgiving ourselves or someone else, we are unburdening ourselves with a weight that we don't need to carry, but we do have to go through the process. So this is another one of these cards or processes that you went through, Kate, to birth this, that I think is absolutely brilliant. Every step of it is brilliant. I love it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and the step, just you went acceptance to forgiveness. I can't shake the desire to put the word grace in between those two as the catalyzer.
Yeah.
Everything needs you've got acceptance, but I do feel like grace, especially as we talk about the heart chakra, the green chakra, it's the gentlest little like that little nudge that we need to infuse, switch something from one stage to another. There's so much alchemy in the word grace. And I think it belongs between acceptance and forgiveness, like there's just something, what is great, like an understanding, a knowing, a deeper understanding, and also I would say a collaborative nudge from the universe, like rest here, relax, you are honored, you are loved, you are forgiven, you are never forgotten, you are healed. There's a healing power in the word grace. It's in the song, in the idea of it. There's a spiritual resting place, I would say, there. So yeah, as we accept, we find our grace, which leads to forgiveness. I think I went on that. I don't need to harp on grace. I know it's not even technically in here, but I've had some people ask, what is grace? I don't understand grace, but I think for me, it's this thing between acceptance and forgiveness. Like, we found grace, you wily sucker. That's it.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And when I think about this painting and this art and this idea, also I think about delicate necklaces.
Yes.
You have, when they get tangled and it looks like there's nothing, just that thin line of gold, and there's nothing you can do. You can pull if you go too hard, it's not gonna work. Sometimes it has to go precision. Sometimes you need a little pin, and you just have to. You don't want to break anything, you know what I mean? But there's something that happens suddenly where it goes boop, and it does just fall apart and go back to its original beauty. Maybe I've also been spoiled because I think that's generally Alan's job. So I get to watch him because it requires a patience, a commitment to being in the moment with your attention. And when I feel this card, this idea, the word untangle is so easy for me to invite in meditation. I feel like the card itself offers the tool that we need to untangle the heart. So in meditation, you can feel viscerally and imagine that thread, that gold thread, or what, of a delicate entanglement, and you can feel and maybe visualize the patience and the attention to the moment it requires to gently untangle and to liberate.
Yeah, I think that when I pull this card, right? So I'm working in the deck and I get untangled. It's an invitation to look at relationship, right? And say, which relationship is another card, but it's a different card than untangle. So this, for me, is an invitation for where is there a knot in my heart, right? And like right now, today, I have this experience where I'm shifting supervisors, right? My current supervisor is leaving the job and I'm getting a new supervisor, and I am knotted about it. I really love working with this person, and I'm nervous about my next work relationship where someone gets to hold me as my supporting supervisor, right? And so the invitation to, and I think, Lonnie, you kind of nudged at it. So if we have the combination of, first you have an awareness, and then we have acceptance, right? Then we add in grace, and then there's a decision. And I think that part of my decision making when it comes to untangle and forgiveness is literally the assumption that this is for me, happening for me always, right? The assumption that this is happening for me, and that when my mind wants to start making knots where there is no knots, like it just wants to make some knots, because it's like what it's really trying to do is protect me from actually feeling the feelings that I'm having around these relationships, or this relationship with something that I have in me. It might not be a person, although I think that that's where, when this card is pulled and I have a nod, and I might say to it, like, where is the forgiveness that I'm allowing in as part of the grace, as part of that gentle, you know, untangling of the necklace. I think that's like a perfect metaphor, because it is so annoying. You're like, I just want to break it because I just want to do better. Except that isn't how it works, you know. And we all have that person that in our life that is like the great necklace untangler. Like, maybe you're a great necklace untangler, or maybe you know the person in your life that is the great necklace untangler. But that invitation is almost like the grace, like, hey divine, I'm just going to hand this over to you. Can you help me a little bit untangle this puppy?
Yes.
Right. And then when you give it back to me, I'm like, oh, thanks. You know, like, we're being held. And so I think this painting also nods this place for the divine in the untangling, and that we, by our nature, are so funny. We like to put knots in stuff. Like, we're just like, it's like, oh, I can't just purely feel that I'm super sad about this situation, or I'm super nervous, right? Instead, I'm going to be like, let's knot this up and make it about 16 other people that has nothing about them at all in this process. So.
If I can add to that a little bit, again, just through personal experience, I feel like, you know, first of all, relationship is a key word. Heart chakra is so connected to second chakra, which is all about relationships. When we individuate and we choose new people in our tribe, not necessarily from our family of origin, yet we're always doing that root chakra work as we elevate through the chakras, and we cycle up and down all the time in our evolution. In the heart, it's really useful to, especially if we're feeling tangled, especially if we're feeling layered or stuck, or there's something there that we just can't even know. Maybe we feel stuck in the heart. We can't even, you know, define where the knots are and what the tangles are. Maybe it's just like you can identify individual strands there, right? So, how it's useful to ask ourselves, how do we define love? How do I define love? Where does my understanding of what love is, how I receive love, what it looks like, and how I give love, what it looks like? Are there strings attached? Do I think love is when someone approves of me or tells me I have value? You know, what is our definition of love? Because that definition, oftentimes, if it's unconscious or never been evaluated before, and that question may need to circulate around in us for a little while before we get the answer. But that question, if our definition of love is an unconscious replay all the time, we're probably attracting the same situation, the same type of relationship, the same type of issue over and over and over. Maybe our heart gets broken again and again and again. Maybe we end up feeling betrayed over and over and over. Maybe we end up with people who won't commit to us over and over. You know, whatever our pattern is around love, probably our definition of love deserves some evaluation. And probably, if we go all the way back to the root chakra, our family of origin, we could look at how we grew up as children and say, oh, in my household, my parents were super busy. Like, what were they doing? My parents were busy. They were trying to provide for the kids. And the only time I ever felt like I really received love is if I did this one chore, or if I did this thing really, really well. So therefore, the only way that I ever deserve to get love is to be useful in this lifetime. So I have to work to deserve love. You know, what is our definition of love? Or maybe the pattern is in our childhood that love was very conditional. Well, I will give you love if you're a good child, but if you're a bad child, I'm taking my love away from you, etc. What is our, and sometimes we've talked about trauma and different things, so that we think that love is very conditional and we equate love with loss, right? I write about my own journey with this in one of our books that we co-wrote together, right? For the Live and Love Retreat, a little blip in there around this epiphany of, oh, after heartbreak and divorce and all, in the throes of heartbreak and divorce and all of this stuff with a little baby, I realized, oh, my definition of love isn't working for me. Because if this is really the true definition of love, that means I am not worth loving, I'm unlovable, I can't love, and love equals loss. And when I got all the way to the bottom of that, I realized, no, I think I got the wrong definition of love. And I had the epiphany of where that comes from, right? No fault of my upbringing. It's just what happened. It's what I integrated. It's part of my privilege and lesson in this life. And that's the moment it cracked open. That was not just a grand untangling. It was an explosion of, like, I didn't even have to find the individual strands. The chains and the locks burst open. And I went, oh, I can breathe. And I'm changing my definition of love. I found my unconditional heart, which I always had. It was always under there and always trying to be operational, but I had to get the chains off my heart.
Yeah.
So if we, and then it's just been a joyride from there, you know, happily ever after. Just kidding. It's been great. It's been great. It's really been great. It was a game changer. But how do you define love, you know?
I'll tell you that's the thing. Our definition for love needs to be untangled. I mean, it's never been like in all this great spiritual teachings, the definition is as simple as it gets: unconditional love. God
No
is
strings
love.
attached.
There's no like asterisk where you like go to section 14.7 to see all the qualifications that you need to, like, there's no legalese in unconditional love, you know, God or whatever, the energy is pure. There's nothing you have to be. You're not, you know, you don't need to prepare yourself to receive. You can certainly step into ceremony if that helps you, because you are human. But our definition has to be untangled, and not until you, like you said in that beautiful, so Christina's talking about her story in the Grow book, which is so good. Oh my gosh, it's just so, like, the writing, I will never forget the gift you gave me when I got to read that. You're like, what do you think about that? I was having a nutty fit after every paragraph, because the way you told that beautiful story, I mean, I felt it all. I felt that particular, that's profound. But when we realize, like, we think we know love, where do we think we know it? In here, right? Like you said, we pick it up, we get it. It is part of our DNA structure in birth, and then we come into our families, whatever that is, and then we start defining it by our experiences. And until we arrive, like in your case, I think it was in the kitchen, right? With the until we arrive in that moment where, like, the stuff that's inside is not matching what I thought my definition of love was. There's entangling. The other word that's coming is dissolving. You know, it needs, when we embrace the simplicity of what love, untangled love is, then we get the privilege of spending the next half of our lives going, wow, really? In testing all the scenarios, right?
And that's the moment, at least for me, that was the moment I understood self-love. And that was a decision of self-forgiveness, right? And the same thing, I love this card, Lonnie. And I think it helps to identify who is the primary person in our life that we felt love from the most in our childhood. Like, who was it? For me, I identify my greatest experience of love in my childhood in my relationship between myself and my father. I had love with my mom and I, but the primary deep feeling of love that I experienced the most was between my dad and I. And so that complex relationship, all I had to do was look at that relationship and that relationship dynamic to understand my relationship dynamic through the rest of my life and how it played out, and that complexity. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to my father. I'm grateful to my mother. I'm grateful for them saying yes and allowing me to come here. And I'm grateful for all of his wounds and flaws and all of my wounds and flaws, and that we got to play there together so that I could come to this epiphany in my life where I understood what self-love is. Because that to me also was very elusive. People always would say to me my whole life, well, before you can really understand loving someone else, you have to love yourself. And I'd be like, well, what the hell, excuse me, but what does it mean to love yourself? I often frame things in here, use this tool. This is an act of self-love on the journey to really understanding what self-love is. But it was when that untangling process happened that I understood in that moment by the stove what self-love was, because that was that inner decision again of forgiveness, of going, oh, I am worth loving. I'm going to make a decision right now that I am worth loving. And it's not a superficial decision. It was all the way down and in. I think that that's really powerful. So who is our primary love relationship? And not to fault ourselves, because I've met a lot of people in my life, myself included, who have faulted themselves for recycling through similar relationship patterns over and over and gotten very frustrated. It's like this turn on the spiral over and over and over, the loop. That's such a gift. If you've done many turns on that same loop on your spiral, that's really cool, because you're not right at the beginning. Even if you're getting tired and exhausted and you're tired of recycling the same relationship pattern over and over, you're almost there, right? We're almost there. Then something can start to crack. That's good news.
Yes, it is.
Deep. This one's deep. What about, can I ask you guys a question? What do you think about loss when it comes to love? Like, I'm thinking of a few humans that I know and love that have had loss, significant loss. And it's like, how do you see untangling and forgiveness in correlation to loss? And I know I have another painting called Embracing Letting Go, so that maybe like overlap a little bit of that one. But when I think about that component, it's for some reason it's just coming in to ask that question. So I don't know if anyone has.
Sorry, can I say something? This is my little self-study place. Is that okay, Lonnie, if I jump in?
Absolutely.
You're just odd. You went, oh, I mean, that's how
I know. Like all the dots are connecting. I love this. So if our definition of love, like mine was, is love is going to equal loss, rather than thinking, okay, love's one side of the coin. Do we think the other side of the coin is loss? Or can love be on both sides of the coin? It's not about loss, because everything's impermanent. It's about our fear of loss and our level of attachment. Our level of attachment, even to each other, to our objects, to our identity, to our lifestyle, to our home, our level of attachment is directly proportional to the depth of our pain over loss. Have you ever seen, and I'm not saying, there's a difference between pain of loss and pure grief. Because in my experience, pure grief, yes, there's a ton of pain in it, but there's also some beauty in there somewhere, because there's love thread through grief, right? We can love someone so deeply and then they pass away, something happens. And we can feel overwhelming grief to the point where we think our heart might stop beating. And in some cases, some people's hearts do stop beating when they lose the one they love. But there's a lot of love in that grief. So let's put that in an exceptional category and say, I lost my little kitten Oliver. I cried for a week. And then I was able to go through this deep journey. I still miss him every single day. My fur baby, four-legged. I went through this deep journey of my level of attachment to this beautiful being, to the point where I realized, oh, his spirit's okay. He's all right. Even if he suffered, his journey is his journey. He's okay. I can't control that. And I got to see how many projections how much I projected onto this little tiny, beautiful, wild four-legged. Everything I thought that our relationship was, human to fur baby, was mostly my projected attachment, right? So that became proportional to my level of loss, my level of attachment. And my level of pain was proportional to my level of attachment. That's true with anyone and anything. Oh, I lost my home because I couldn't afford to pay my bills. My home's being foreclosed on. I am going through so much grief. Yeah, it's grief. It's painful. But are we our homes? No, change happens. Are we our jobs and careers? No, we're greater than that. Change happens. You know, are we supposed to be in this one relationship with this one person for all of our lives? Maybe, if we're lucky, maybe something happens to them, right? Maybe we have to go through a physical procedure. Are we that part of ourselves that is identified with our bodies? No, we're not. We're greater than that. There's such clear support in our worlds for going through this process. Look at our fear. Are we afraid of loss? Be okay with that fear. Come to the stillness, right? Forgive ourselves for having fear. That's okay. That's normal and it's human. And if we experience pain over loss, what is our attachment to what we think we're losing? Because in fact, we're not losing anything. And I'll just cap this off by saying, because the love doesn't ever go away. And when I had that epiphany around, oh, I can redefine love. I am unconditional love. When I went through divorce and actually did lose my home and I lost everything, my identity, my everything, my career, all of it was gone. I had my baby though, my boy. I had to let everything shatter. That was my privileged journey. And in the bottom of that, when I said, oh, I can redefine love and oh, I am worth loving. I do love myself and everything changed inside me and out. Hang on for a second. I got to get back to the original place. Oh, thank you. Thank you for pausing with me and letting me do that. I realized that what I was most attached to at that time, to be really personal about it, was my husband. And once I realized that I could love him no matter what, we didn't have to be together. I didn't have to stop my love, and I didn't have to have the marriage. I didn't have to have the idea of what my life was supposed to look like. Once I recognized that he didn't even have to know I was loving the hell out of him. He didn't have to have a clue. I could just love without bounds, and I got free. And I went, oh, I'm hurting because I want him to be in bed beside me. I'm hurting because I want to be in our home. I'm hurting because I want to raise my son in the same house and go to the same school and have the car and the career and blah, blah, blah. All of that gone, I said, I'm going to love the hell out of this man. And then I went, oh, it's not just him. My life doesn't revolve around this guy. My life is, I'm going to love the hell out of everything and everyone, and I'm right in the middle of that. That was my freedom. Love loves. Loss, we're going to experience loss.
I'm so happy you brought that up, because it's all I was feeling is that I think, you know, the tangle, sometimes we think it's about letting love in, but that I had a similar epiphany a few years ago that oh, what else hurts is when we make our own love conditional, not like that once we give our permission, like, and I think we have to get to a place. For me, I had to trust that my love, my capacity for love is pure, that I, you know, everything that I have been developing and learning and growing up here, that, you know, I am energy, love is pure, while I am still human, and there are all these threads of ego and you know, shadow work that I'll continue to do till the day I die is there. I have finally grown familiar enough to know what my pure love light is. So if I have humans in my life who maybe our interactions aren't pure or haven't been wonderful, or I'm confused about them, whether they're my, you know, family or friends or anything in between. Once I gave myself that same permission, like, oh, I can return to my pure light, like thread of love light. It has nothing to do with that person's reaction. They don't have to know I'm doing it. I don't need validation. All I know is I feel better when I'm allowed to love, because sometimes that,
Yes.
you know, that person is on his or her own journey and we don't know, you know, what really helps, Christina, is always every day is the precepts of love that we learn in yoga teacher training. You know, assume nothing, accept everything, take nothing personally. You start, and then do your best to abide by this first three. Like that darn checklist comes into my brain, you know, probably no less than 100 times a day, but definitely once a day. Like, because it's a constant relearning. Like every time my heart feels tangled in, when there is a discomfort, as if I think about somebody, you know, I have no idea what they're thinking about me, and I'm reminded not to take it personally and not to assume anything, right? But what I can do is write my own flow of love.
Yes.
So I disconnect from all the external, like, wonderings, like, does that person think of me? Or are they mad? Are they like, and then I flip the game and I'm like, doesn't matter. Maybe they could use my love right now. And if they don't, like, it's interesting in energy work, though. I do feel like our highest selves would not stop love. You know, I still ask for the permissions to send that. Luckily, I'm like, nobody's gonna stop the love. You know, yes, I can imagine, and I do assume the permission to receive love is being given to me by others, so I can love fully and completely and not tangle my own capacity for love. So thank you for bringing that up. That is so great.
And the cool thing is, just really briefly, when we get there, Lonnie, what you're talking about and what we're all talking about here, when we get to that place of letting ourselves live in love, we start attracting, if we have previously been cycling through these relationships that are really there as a gift to try and teach us something. So we relive our pattern over and over. It's not even about the other person, it's about the pattern, so that we can eventually realize love. Once we crack through that and untangle, we start naturally attracting relationships to ourselves, we know this, that mirror our capacity to love. So, for instance, when I went through my divorce and got to that place, not only did I learn something about love, and for myself, I attracted a partner who loves me unconditionally and supports me for who I really am, and my ex-life partner became a really good friend. You know, all relationships changed. And I got to meet you too, you know? I mean, it's such a blessing, and all relationships change. Doesn't mean that they don't come up and become challenging over time, but as we dive into our authentic nature through untangling, we attract those who mirror our authentic nature, which is healing for our tribe, root chakra.
And I'd like to just say something also, like, I have a new obsession that's happening right now, Kate. I am seeing, like, I'm looking at you know, your art as a whole, and I'm like, I'm inventing, or it exists already, a connection between these paintings. So I'm looking, you know, you brought up tribe, having the two circles and the through line of universal awareness. And I would offer, like, flow seems to go into that, you know, the idea of flow relating, so tribe, flow to the untangle. I don't yet see the one in yellow that's related as clearly to me, but you know, we move to untangle, we have the different
Then we're ready for the next round, right?
What's that?
Then we're ready for the next round.
Yes. But the one that next seems to play in this little game right now, it's funny, like snowman which is I meditate, seems to play, and there's a third circle there, but I don't know, I'm watching a thread happen before my eyes. It's just really interesting because I mean, I'm seeing thought pop and what is the, hold on, I have to get the name of there's a blue one with lots of circles. So just as I continue to play and love your art, Kate, you know, my heart and these conversations provide for me like new and exciting connections of themes and how they place together. Like I'm seeing, you know, voice and thought pop when there are stacked circles. You know, I think those become their own little families too. You know, the symbolism of the circle, I think, has another story to tell if and when you're ready to play with magnifying and amplifying these ideas. It's fun. That's where the delight is.
Great.
That's where the giddy is.
That's where the giddy is. And it really unveils itself, you know. It's that process of like, oh, look at this curiosity, how these stitch together.
Yes.
So I do love where this conversation went. You know, I think that I often say this, but I will reiterate it. You know, you can use anything to spark journey and conversation with friends. And for me, this evolution of like, first I agreed to make paintings, right? But we also, about the same time, partnered in a journey of live and love, which, you know, I say this not that often, but, you know, I'll just say it here. It's like, it was just totally selfish. It was like, oh, I want to spend more time with these people. If we do something together, we'll have to spend more time together, you know? And so that evolution, first it was the art drew me to the work and drew me to you two. Then we start to get on the ride, and the ride is like, we're going through It's a Small Land in Disneyland, and we're like, oh, look at this. You know, we do this retreat where we expand our worlds, all, you know, our friends, and then they bring friends. And then, as we all know, the live and love community is like this incredible group of humans that we've had the blessings to spend time with over years, that then we're here now, you know, there was much more iterations with the work and blah, blah, blah. But like, here we are having these conversations, and the depth of work that when we start to touch these ideas around, you know, permission and grace and play and curiosity and, you know, are the deepest components of life. You know, people can be frozen and on that for their entire life because they don't want to just do the one thing that would actually allow them to go to the next iteration of the spiral. And I feel like, I'm like, you know, get yourself some good friends. Find things about your journey that make it beyond delightful to engage in it. Because, you know, Lonnie and I both have had the gift of being through YTT with Christina, but then Lonnie's also had the gift of being a fellow instructor with her through this process. And I think that as I think about the things that changed my life, you know, I go back to YTT as probably, like, I wish everybody could get YTT in their life, because there's so many things in there that, just like this painting series, you could untangle your entire life on one idea. Like there's so many things, I'll probably mess up all the words right now for the things, but like, there's just so many things. There's like, and so I think the journey, when I, you know, in this kit, I have that phrase, enjoy the journey. The key is following the things that bring you delight and joy. And I would say, like, this, we are capturing it. This is an active capture for me. To have you guys willing enough to be like, let's look at these paintings 8,982 times. And each time see it with a different lens, bring it into the world in a different way. And then dive with each other into these ideas that lead us to places that we have no idea we were going. We didn't know, we just go. And in it, I think is an exposure for anyone that's hearing this right now, whatever is resonating with you, that this is your invitation. And we're willing to play. Like, we're showing up. We made a commitment. We're going to do this over the course of the year. So every painting gets to have its kind of journey of conversation with no preemptive script. There's no script. But it's that joy in the unveiling of it between the three of us that I know will resonate wherever it's supposed to resonate. Whoever's hearing this, you are the only one hearing this right now. We are talking to you. There's no one else listening, right? So even if no one ever heard it, it wouldn't matter, because the process of creation in itself is the gift, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Oh yeah. I had to pull out all the paintings in this set while you were talking. So this is this is where we've been journeying. I'm so bad at holding these up. And this is where we're going. And the beauty is astounding.
Oh, beautiful.
You're reminding me of a dream I had years ago, and I don't know why I remember this dream. I was in a parking lot, and there were all these light beings, and there were all these rainbow people, and they were all made of rainbows, all the rainbows, right? And I was kind of like hanging back going, and then somebody said, well, if you go through this gauntlet, like this weird obstacle course thing from the parking lot into this building, you become a rainbow person. And I'm like, I want to be a rainbow person. And they're like, duh, you are a rainbow person. And I went through this weird like tunnel obstacle course thing. And I came into this room that looked like this super hip bohemian style bookseller's cafe bar, but it was really clean. And it was filled with rainbow people. And it was all creativity. And I found, this is so dumb to tell this story. I don't know why I remember it. I found this man sitting on a couch, and he was a beautiful Asian man. And I loved him more than anything or anyone that I loved in my whole life. And I went, oh, you're my twin soul. And I realized, oh no, you're my masculine side. And he was a violinist. He was a virtuoso. He played the violin. Never played the violin in my life. But I always remember that and go, we were all rainbow people. We were all this, right? And there's so many iterations. And I got to meet my other rainbow people in this lifetime.
Wow. I'll tell you
dream.
one thing about you and your dreams, Christina, they're not subtle.
I like the obstacle course part.
No big.
That's a metaphor.
In any of that, right? Beautiful. Well, thank you, Miss Kate LeMay. Another beautiful, beautiful conversation, I think.
Oh, I'm so grateful for the both of you being here and spending this time in this way and kind of allowing this thing to do its next journey, which is, when I get these kind of locked in ideas, I understand when I am supposed to listen, but I think I said this in a previous thing. It's a little harder when you're trying to conglomerate others as part of that journey, and just your willingness to say yes to this process. I couldn't be more grateful, because it is the next iteration. It's like, this is what it's supposed to be doing. And I'm just so grateful for the two of you. And for anyone that's listening right now, if this is resonating with you, like, you are part of this journey, and we're really grateful for you being here. It's the energy is collective, and it is what it is because of who's listening.
And don't let it stop. Like, if anybody is inspired to gather their own little gaggle of people, 2 humans, 7 other humans, set up a Zoom call, pick a card once a week, discuss the card. The themes are universal. They're really helpful, because at the end of the day, it's the understanding with ourselves, but we get so much more insight when you invite other people into the conversation.
Yeah. And if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat below, because that'll give us something to kind of elaborate on and answer in further calls. And don't ever assume something's a silly question. There is no silly question. So a lot of times when I first started doing this work with Christina and Lonnie, I'd be like, oh, can you explain authentic self? Or can you explain, these words that we might just use all the time because they become part of our lexicon. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Everyone, I approach all this stuff with such a beginner's mind that I actually get, as you can see, I get delighted and very easily tangentized when I get asked any questions about any of this stuff, because it's just the best. So, okay. All right. Well,
I want to go back to what you said in the beginning, Kate, real quick. Forgiveness is the key to an untangled heart. Kate LeMay. That's all.
Thanks.
Beautiful.
Well, it's really the universe, but
Thanks, loves.
Thanks for allowing us to be on this journey with you, Kate, and
Thank
all
you.
of us on this journey together, and with you, if you are watching, those of you who are watching and listening and being in your own untangled heart. Blessings.
blessings.
Blessings. Love you. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at The Chatting Chakra Show and at www.katelemay.com. Check back weekly for new episodes where we are always celebrating enjoying the journey. Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at The Chatting Chakra Show and at www.katelemay.com. Check back weekly for new episodes where we are always celebrating enjoying the journey.